As always, we asked you to submit your questions for our segment, Ask the Artist. We were overwhelmed by the response for Cristina, and so what we don't get to here, we'll be publishing in the coming days on Instagram at Top Artist Podcast and on Twitter at Top Artist Pod. So if you want to hear even more from Cristina, check out those channels. Let's get to it. We asked our listeners to submit questions for you. We have so many questions.
Oh, good.
Some we've sort of talked about, and some we'll cover as many as we can here. And what we can't fit in the episode, we'll put online in another way. So we talked about this a little bit, but I think it warrants asking again. Jackie Trujillo asked, what are some effective ways to combat climate change that one can do even if they don't have a big platform?
That is a wonderful question. And I think climate change is one of those that is so big, right? So we often feel a little powerless to tackle it. First and most important, the most important thing we can do, because we're all voters in one country or another, is to research the people that are running for office and make sure that they actually sincerely care about tackling climate change as a top priority. Over any other issue, that is the most important one. Second, yes, it is up to us as consumers to, do the best we can. But the better thing to do is to hold the companies that are not tackling climate change accountable for their actions by choosing not to support their products. And it takes a little bit of work to research. One thing that I've done that was super easy, and I think it has an enormous impact, I moved my money out of the bank that I used to bank with because they were funding fossil fuel projects, and I moved it to another bank that funds instead regeneration of ecosystems. So that was a super easy thing to do. And, why would I want my money to fund the exploration of oil? So that was easy. Most importantly, and the easiest thing that we all can do, let's speak up. Let's be influencers within our family, within our friends, our school, our job. Let's stop tiptoeing around the issue. Speak your mind up. Tell your colleagues that this is what you believe in, this is what you're working for, these are your values, and little by little and through repetition, through conviction, without doing it in an angry or preachy way, your values will permeate to others. At the end of the day, climate change, biodiversity loss is not an issue. It's a matter of values. We have to change our value system, and it starts with us.
Our next question comes from Timo Nicole, and he wanted to know, I can't actually see, how do you find motivation when maybe you don't have any, which is a common issue that happens sometimes with all of us?
Thanks for that question, Timo. I get asked that question a lot, and I happen to be an optimist by nature, but I'm also a parent. And I find that I don't have the luxury of dwelling in my own apathy, my own misery, and my own despair. If I'm not willing to get up and have a positive outlook on what we're doing and have a real, honest, sincere belief that we can turn this around, I would not be able to convince anyone. But I am actually convinced that in a single generation, we can restore health and abundance to the oceans, and we can tackle the climate crisis. We just have to do what's needed. And so I'm going to channel my Martin Luther King when I tell you that my dream is I had to live on a planet that has a living ocean where humans have abundance of resources to be happy and thrive. And so let's work towards that, shall we?
Our next question is an interesting one from Sharm Singh. Is it hard to balance normal life with field work?
Such a good question. The answer is...
That's a loaded question.
Because there's no easy answer. And the truth is that if you're a field biologist, if you're a field photographer, your life is littered with neglected partners and abandoned children. And somebody pays the price for this, right? So my advice is find a partner who really believes in what you're doing and who's willing to support you in your life at home or as a partner in the field to make it work, because otherwise it's really difficult to sustain. For myself, I was very lucky that my first husband and I had our children when I was so young, because I was able to stay at home with them I didn't really have a career. I was kind of working in the basement and trying to make things happen. But he was very supportive, and he was the one that was helping me pay for the classes at the Corcoran, that was helping me buy my first camera. Without his support, it would have been impossible. And my children were really good. I remember feeling like a terrible parent every time I left. And I asked my daughter, who is now 25, I would say, am I a bad mother? I feel terrible leaving you. And she would say, Mom, go. The planet needs saving. Go save the ocean. Go. I'm okay. So I owe as much to my kids for being so good.
So our last question, we received a lot of this, a lot of obviously up and coming photographers, or also just people who wish, they see your travels and they wish they could do that sort of, how can I start a career in photography, or how can I really follow my dream and go out and travel? I mean, I'm sure you get that question a lot. What do you tell people that are looking for advice that seems like such an abstract thing to take the leap and make that change for themselves?
It is such a massive leap. And so you cannot do it from one day to the next. It's always a journey. And it was a journey for me as well. I started my career as a photographer, photographing people. I was making family portraits and proms and weddings because that was an easy way of gaining skills while making money so that I could pay for the real work that I wanted to do. And it was not overnight. I made so many mistakes and it took me a long time. But start small. Most important thing is to keep your eye on the ball. So I oftentimes talk about this idea of ikigai. It's Ikigai, and it's a Japanese word that means the purpose of your life. And it comes when you find the confluence of four things. It's what you love, which is also what you're good at. And remember that sometimes it takes time to become good at what you love. The third thing is that it pays for the bills, and it takes time to build a business around these two things. The fourth one is that it's what the world needs. It's finding that purpose for the work. Working towards those four things is not something that you find overnight, at least not for most people. So be patient with yourself. Know that you may have to have two jobs in order to support the one that fills your soul with joy. But as long as you remember where you're going, you will get there. So start making lists, and good luck.